Hey cultists, this is Andy here, and in this video I want to talk to you about painting my personal Lumineth army and why I'm finding it so difficult. So recently on the Cult of Paint channel we gave you a Lumineth tutorial, and that was actually how I'm going to paint my personal army. I also did Eltharion for Patreon, and I was super happy with how both these models turned out. These videos aren't going to be tutorials. I'm really just going to talk about painting the army and how I'm enjoying it or how I'm not enjoying it. But what I will do is if I paint anything different, like there's something that wasn't in the original tutorials, then I'll put those tips and things in. But mostly I just want to keep you updated on my army and hopefully you find it interesting. I'll be interested to know what you think about these videos. Painting the Spearman and the Eltharion character was awesome because I got to really test out my scheme on both an army trooper and a character, and I was really happy with how it came out, and I was like, yes, I love this army, I really like this paint scheme, let's go. So as soon as I put out the tutorial, I started painting my own stuff. When I was young, I always used to paint the characters and I never got the troops done. So I was kind of trying to be an adult and start with the boring stuff, which is the Spearman. So I thought, right, let's get 20 of these done in one go, and then it will be joyous and it will be a fun army to paint. I've painted plenty of armies in this way before, where I've painted 60 Fire Warriors, 40 Dryads, 40 Space Marines, and so on. But what I wasn't prepared for was what the motivational levels would be like during this horrible time when we're stuck inside the whole time. Logic would say that, well, we're stuck inside, we've got loads of time to paint, and if we get an army done during this time when we're allowed to play games and do stuff, it'll be super cool. But, that's being sensible and logical about it, but I still think it's really hard to bring yourself to paint. I know that this period has affected people in different ways. Some people are painting tons and some people aren't painting at all. I'm kind of somewhere in between because I'm still really enjoying my painting. I think I painted some of my best display models during 2020, so that was really cool. But I hadn't really done an army project or anything like that. And I felt it was the time just because I just really love the Lumineth, and I did have that thought that it would be cool to come out of this lockdown with an army. So motivation was really high. I just finished the tutorial and I went into airbrushing actually 30 models. So I did 10 of the hammer guys and 20 of the spearmen. But then the first job after the airbrushing is blocking in the Rhinox hide trim. There's just no way around it. This job is horrific. It's super hard and it takes ages. I was timing myself, and the fastest I could block in the brown, bearing in mind it's just base coating brown, was 35 minutes per model, and I had 30 to do. You can do the maths, but it's quite a long time just to paint brown. I found it super tedious, and I thought, the only way I'm going to do this is if I do one a day or two a day, and that's what I tried. So the first few evenings I would get 2 done, then the next night another 2 done, and I was like, this is cool, 2 a day, 10 days I'll have the 20 spearmen done, that's okay. But then it would be like 4 days and I wouldn't pick up a brush at all because of real life and other commitments. And losing the momentum really sucked because you just look at these 20 infantry and think, I'm not getting anywhere on these, and I haven't even got past the brown stage, and that was really tough. I was kind of felt like, shall I even bother? I've done a couple characters, what shall I do? But then Games Workshop were really awesome, and they sent me through the Lord Regent kit, so I could do them a tutorial or a little article for the community website, so watch out for that one soon. And this was really cool because it injected the motivation again. I kind of had to do it because I said I would, but I love the model. Maybe it's my favourite model from the Lumineth range. I'll get back to you on that. So yeah, I was super psyched to paint this model, and there was a little injection of motivation again. So I painted this one over about 2 weeks, and I was really happy with the outcome. I got to play with things like textured fur, paint a big mounted character, and I love the base. It was cool to see loads of grass on the base, which, as I've said before, is one of my favourite parts. So yeah, I'm really happy with this turned out, and I'm looking forward to seeing the step-by-step on that. Having this model done did help with the motivation again, because I looked at it and I thought, this is really cool, and Eltharian's really cool. I really do want the army to go with these guys. So yeah, even though painting a character is maybe naughty, I'm supposed to be painting the troops, it did help bring my motivation back when it had pretty much gone. So I forced myself to get that Rhinox hide base coat done, and I did it. I painted the base coat on all 20 models and they were done, and I was super relieved. But then I was like, well, now I've got to do another stage. What's it going to be? What I found was, unlike the brown, some of the other steps were really fast, and I could do them for all 20 in an evening, which was way nicer. So I managed to do all the faces, all the eyes in one night, and that was tick all the skin, all the eyes done, which is, a tricky task. So I was like, okay, maybe the brown was just the worst step, and now you've got that done, it'll be okay, it'll be a bit easier. And it's a bit like, edge highlighting a Space Marine is not the most enjoyable part, well, for me anyway. And maybe with the Lumineth, just you've got to get that brown bit done, blocking in that first part, and then the rest is actually quite fun. So I need to push through and get this done. I carried on base coating the rest of them, and I managed to base coat all the blue and various parts, and I did all the gold as well, the first layer of gold, so they were starting to look a lot better. But then Games Workshop again sent me some new kits. I had this update video planned for a specific date, and I didn't really have much to talk about apart from the Lord Regent. So I thought it might be, a bit naughty deviating from the plan again, but I really fancied painting these sword guys. I don't know what they're called. We're going to call them sword people, hammer people. You get the drill. But like I had that bit of motivation from the Lord Regent, I thought maybe if I do 5 of these quickly and I see a finished unit of infantry, that will help with the motivation again. So I proceeded to do so. I ran out of black primer and I tried some grey primer, and yeah, I think this is probably better actually than the black. The only difference is it took fewer steps to put down the Warp Fiend grey, but I think that little bit of time is worth it. So yeah, I would recommend the grey, but the end result isn't massively different. I was also a little braver and I put stronger contrast in, and that was just shading again with Warp Fiend grey a little harsher, and I think that's turned out nice. So then I had to go into the Rhinox hide stage. But do you know what? On 5 models, it wasn't so bad. I think I did them all in one evening. I thought, let's do it. Let's get these done. And they weren't anywhere near as bad. Doing 5 helped, but also I think the Spearman in particular, because of the shield symbol, just took longer. There's more to block in. So that was cool. I was like, that's the worst stage, and that's out of the way on the first evening. The gold I use is a mix of a monument paint and a scale 75 paint, and I thought, you're always using this mix, let's make a mixing pot. That will help you save some time and be a bit more efficient, and maybe little things like that will help you get this army done. So I chucked a couple agitator beads in a blank pot, put in some retardant as well, so it would kind of slow dry the metallics a bit more. Then I made up my mix and span that in the vortex. This was cool because now I had the mix, it would be consistent. But also, if I just had 10-15 minutes, I could put a tiny blob on the palette and maybe I could just highlight the gold on one. Whereas normally I was like, well, I've got to mix up a big batch and I've got to do them all at the same time to make sure it's consistent. But just little things like this meant I could, pick up and get something done. And that started to make a difference to the motivation too. And this is kind of how I started to proceed on these. Sometimes I'd have 15 or 20 minutes with nothing to do. I was just sitting waiting to work at my computer. And you feel like you're just wasting time, but you don't actually have enough time to do any proper painting. But then I was like, no, come on. If you've got 15 minutes, do something. And I would do things like just base coat the bases, which obviously took, 1 minute per base, if that. And that always takes a long time to dry after. So it was actually really cool to just quickly blast this color on. And I could come back to it whenever, hours later, the next day. But I was still moving forward by doing this. And that was cool. And it really helped with my head. This meant I did the models out of sequence to what I had planned. But it didn't matter because I was just progressing. So when I had a time for a long session, I would do things like the cloth. And I really enjoyed doing the cloth on the trousers because I loved the colour I used, which was brown grey from scale 75. And on the Spearman, this was just in a little bit. So it was actually quite cool to get to do more of that on these figures, and I enjoyed that. Other parts like the cloaks took the longest. I knew they were going to take a while, so I kind of planned when I had plenty of time ahead. I think I gave myself a whole evening, 3 to 4 hours spare. So once I started them, I could get them done. And I thought that was important. When I did Eltharion, I was really happy with the result of the cloak. But I did spend, I think, maybe 2 or 3 hours just on one cloak. And I didn't really want to do that on a unit 5, because what am I going to do when I do the 10 hammers? So I managed to do a pretty good job of painting all 5 in 2 hours. And that was cool. That was the longest thing done, out of sequence, like I said, but with the longest thing over, I could chip away at all those other details. I set myself a deadline, and actually it was so I could do this video and have something to talk about. And I did find myself rushing at the end. So I was painting some of the details, and I was getting a bit sloppy and not as neat as I can be, and this kind of bugged me a little bit. I even did a sloppy job of painting the base rims black. They have to be black, by the way. And that was like, okay, I think you need to chill out and maybe come back to these. So I decided to finish them for now by sticking the grass on, which I always like. It changes the look of the model, and it's something that really makes me want to paint the army, because I've got this grassy fields theme in my head and I would like to do a board to match. And with that done, I took a step back and thought, yeah, actually, they look pretty awesome. I'm happy with that. So I've kind of not finished them yet. So the boots are just painted Rhinox hide brown, so there's no highlights yet. But I don't mind that, because that's just adding to it. If you make a bad job and you rush the foundation, so the paint is too thick or it's not neat enough and things like that, then that's not so good. I just had to add some additional things, some more colours, some more highlights, some more shading. And I thought, you know what, when I feel like it, I can do that. But for now, these look pretty cool. So then I had to grab my other models, Eltharion, the Lord Regent, and have a little look at what it was looking at. And this gave me the first sense of, okay, I do really, really want this army. Like, they look great together, the infantry, the characters. I love the basing, I love the colour scheme. I don't have to change anything like that. Sometimes I do an army project and I don't move forward because I can't nail the colour scheme. But in this case, I was really happy with the colour scheme. I was just finding it difficult. And I don't normally find it difficult to motivate myself to paint at all, really. So thinking about it, I just feel it must be the fact that we've not got events coming up. I've not got a game in sight. So it's kind of like, why should I slog through painting these 20 Spearmen? But the other side is these do look really cool, and this has helped with the motivation. I thought, let's grab the Spearmen, put it all together, see how my army's looking so far, and maybe that'll give me a bit of a buzz to carry on with these. I hadn't looked at the Spearmen for a good couple weeks, and you know what, I'm way further ahead than I thought I was. The blue's on there, the gold base coat is there. I've really done the worst bit, which is the building, the airbrushing and base coating everything. And looking at the other models, they just look great. So I have to finish this army. I really love them. I don't want to do another army. Yeah, I really do want to do it. And this is really cool, seeing them all together, getting a little bit of a vision of what it'll be like in the end. It's definitely not enough, so I think I need to paint something big, like a hammer cow, and that'll give some different height to the army, and then it'll feel like an army then. So where am I at with them now? Well, I'm really happy with everything I've done so far. Like I've said, I've got the scheme down. I can replicate it anytime I like. The spearmen are hard, but I think they're going to be the greatest challenge in the army. Once I've pushed through those, I'm sure it'll be really fun to just pick up characters, smaller units like the hammer people, and a cavalry unit for sure, but that'll just be 5. I do think that I'll be sailing through once I've got them done. I want to take a break from the Lumineth because I've done a lot of them recently. With that unit of swords and the Lord Regent. Yeah, I'm just going to take a little break. And also I have the Patreon that I want to do, and I'm working on a Farseer that's coming out really cool. So I can't always just work on my own army because nobody wants to see a Lumineth tutorial every week. I mean, I do. I'd be happy with that, but I'd like to keep the Patreons happy, so I won't do that. So what was the point in this video? Well, hopefully some of you find it interesting and like seeing what I paint, but maybe hearing about kind of the psychology with it. I think when you just see finished pictures on Instagram, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, they paint all the time, they don't go through any troubles painting. But yeah, it's really hard sometimes, and my motivation really does go up and down. Actually, some of the comments that were super nice on the Lord Regent really help. Just, people saying, I really want to see this army, makes me go, yeah, cool, I do want to do this army. So that does help, especially when you're not seeing anyone physically. So let me know if you can relate to this and if you enjoyed this video. These Lumineth updates aren't going to be every month, but hopefully in some months' time, I'm going to come back and say, hey, look, I did those 20 spearmen. I mean, hopefully. It's not for sure. So yeah, let me know what you thought of this video, and it wasn't a tutorial, but if you still enjoyed it, if you can relate to anything and the troubles we go through, and maybe it's something we should do on the Culture of Paint podcast, is talk about motivation in painting, because that's really what I wanted to talk about today. So until next time, hopefully some of you are enjoying your Lumineth and finding them easier than me, but we'll see you in the next video.